Hello and welcome. I am Ellie Richardson and you are watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. Ukraine and Russia have conducted their first prisoner exchange in months, each releasing at least 157 people amid US-brokered talks in Abu Dhabi aimed at ending the war. The two sides have in the past conducted several rounds of such prisoner swaps. Meanwhile, the Russia-Ukraine-US talks in Abu Dhabi have concluded. Zelensky's top aide stated the talks were really constructive. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer apologises to the victims of Jeffrey Epstein for appointing Peter Mandelson as the UK ambassador to the US, despite his close ties to Epstein. Starmer admitted that while it was known Mandelson knew Epstein, the full extent of their relationship was not understood until recently. The US and Iran agree to hold talks in Oman on Friday, despite sharp differences over the scope of negotiations. Washington seeks to include Iran's missile program, while Tehran says only its nuclear file is on the table. China's leader Xi Jinping has called Taiwan the most important issue in China-US relations during a phone call with US President Donald Trump. Xi told Trump to be prudent when supplying weapons to the island, state media report. A legal rights group says Venezuela frees 22 more prisoners. The releases come as interim government promises slowly continue. Gaza health officials say Israeli tank shelling and airstrikes killed 26 Palestinians, including 7 children. The dead includes a medic killed while responding to a strike in Khan Yunis. Nigeria's President Bola Ahmed Tinubu deploys an army to Kwara State after gunmen killed as many as 162 people in one of the country's deadliest attacks in recent months. Babamo Ajude, Kwara State Secretary, has said the search for more bodies continues. And for your top stories this hour, we now have more information coming out of US-European Command's announcement of the re-establishment of high-level military-to-military dialogue between the US and Russia. According to US-European Command, the re-establishment follows meetings in the United Arab Emirates, capital between General Alexis Grynovich, commander of US-European Command, and senior Russian and Ukrainian military officials. This channel will provide a constant military-to-military contact as the parties continue to work towards a lasting peace. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskiy says talks involving Ukraine, Russia and the United States in Abu Dhabi remain difficult but are continuing. Speaking in Kyiv, Zelensky said negotiators are covering sensitive issues and will brief him in detail soon. He stressed that Ukraine remains committed to dialogue even as it pushes for strong and lasting security guarantees. Zelensky said the goal is to end the war in a way that prevents any future aggression by Russia. According to Zelensky, 157 Ukrainian soldiers have now returned home, bringing relief to their families. This comes as, in a major breakthrough, the United States, Ukraine and Russia have agreed to exchange 314 prisoners. Let's listen in.
Домовилися, що буде наступна зустріч найближчим часом. Щодо характеру розмови і про що говорили? Говорили про все. Вважають, що інформація дуже сенситивна, хочуть приїхати і мені доповісти детально. Важливо, що процес йде, хочеться більш швидких результатів. Ну, якщо наступна зустріч є, значить є шанс щодо продовження діалогу, який, безумовно, дуже хочу, щоб привів до закінчення. Є сьогодні обмін, я вітаю всі сім'ї, які зустрінуть своїх близьких, рідних вдома найближчим часом. Це дуже добре, 157 воїнів України повернуться додому. Характеру розмови і про що говорили? Говорили про все. Вважають, що інформація дуже сенситивна, хочуть приїхати і мені доповісти детально. Тоді я буду вже з вами комунікувати, розуміючи, де ми знаходимося. Важливо, що процес йде, хочеться більш швидких результатів. Ну, якщо наступна зустріч є, значить є шанс щодо продовження діалогу, який, безумовно, дуже хочу, щоб привів до закінчення війни.
We are now being joined by retired Major General Sudhakar G, who's a senior strategic and international affairs expert. Thank you so much for joining us here today on NewsX World. How important are humanitarian steps like these prisoner swaps that they've both agreed to in building trust for bigger agreements?
Gali, thank you very much for inviting me for your show. As regards the question which you have raised, there is no concrete evidence to suggest that Russia is going to extend any kind of response in terms of the humanitarian assistance being facilitated, but some beginning has been made. The process of dialogue has begun, and I would say the same Zelensky who was headstrong and bent upon not being flexible earlier has started scaling down his demands. Therefore, I would say this exchange of prisoners, which has taken place from both the sides, is a great breakthrough, which should be maintained, the momentum of which should be maintained and carried forward. Putin, sooner or later, would come onto the line, provided we sustain this momentum and make sure that it does not break in between. So the talk which is already in progress in UAE must be continued in earnest. Back to you, Ali.
And how do countries like the US and UAE influence the pace and structure of these peace talks? Do they help balance push for faster results with the reality of ongoing fighting?
The short answer to your question is no. There are no ready-made quick fix solution to bringing peace to a war-torn region which has been witnessing conflict for past 4 years. They have to exercise strategic patience and give time a chance and continue with the dialogue and diplomacy in earnest and with utmost sincerity. But the suggestion which if I may give, is that in such kind of conflicts, I myself have been party to United Nations mission. I personally feel it's about time that under the flagship of United Nations, a neutral force is earmarked which has to monitor and progress the milestones which are identified on a roadmap and make sure that the military establishments responsible to trigger or initiate fire against each other are kept under tight surveillance and monitoring. This is the only method. And another one is that the United Nations would do well to take proactive stance in the instant case and post neutral observers to the headquarters of Russia, which are responsible to formulate plans and give orders and make sure that the retaliation, if any, to any kind of trigger taking place from Ukraine are prevented. Restraint is the only answer from both the sides. Only then the fire would come to an end some kind of ceasefire would begin, and that would actually entail taking the dialogue for peace forward with meaningful and substantive goal and milestones achieved.
Thank you. Don't go too far, as we will come back to you a bit later. Russia's Human Rights Commissioner Tatiana Moskalova has released video showing two civilians identified as Alexander and Valentina freed by Ukraine in the latest prisoner swap. Maskalokova says 10 Russian civilians remain in Ukrainian custody and hopes for their release soon. Earlier, Russia and Ukraine exchanged 157 prisoners of war each. Let's have a look.
Годом оккупации прожили в Иркутске, а потом летел проблему с рукой.
Ой-ой-ой, где было?
Ну, слушайте, в оккупации, когда жили, когда ракета поймал, полетел, и под видом лечения я в сумме оказался. Ну,
Таблеток не было, парацетамол. Разве это таблетки? Вот, конечно, хотелось бы, чтобы украинская сторона видела, как реально обращались с нашими мирными гражданами, ни в чем абсолютно не повинными. Их держали как фактически.
German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, during his visit to Qatar, announced plans to take a less restrictive stance on arms exports to Gulf states as part of efforts to strengthen economic ties and diversify Germany's energy sources. As part of his broader campaign to position Germany as an attractive business partner, Merz emphasised that Germany would deepen arms cooperation with reliable Gulf partners, focusing on mutual security interests. Merz also outlined plans to increase Germany's liquefied natural gas imports from Qatar. His tour includes meeting with leaders in Brazil, India and South Africa, with a China visit scheduled for later this month. Merz addressed sensitive topics like human rights and Iran-US tensions, pledging Germany's efforts to reduce regional conflicts. He also invited Qatar's Emir for an official visit to Berlin in July. We are now being joined back by retired Major General Sudhakar Ji. Thank you for joining us back here. Why is Germany linking arms cooperation with Qatar to securing more energy?
Very interesting question. You see, the Middle East being what it is today, and Germany is in a mess of an economic crisis. It is going through a stage of recession. It basically wants to revive its economy, and one of the means and methods is to enhance its defense products production and also look around for market where it could sell its weapon systems. One. Number two, Germany as on today is getting liquid natural gas through third party. For example, like France. France is getting through different sources from Russia. The dependency of oil and natural gas with Russia used to be of very high percentage as compared to the past statistics. Germany's direct import from Russia is absolutely zero. So whatever it is getting, to my limited research I have carried out, is 3 to 9% of its total consumption. It is getting through third party. So when it buys gas from Qatar, which is one of the largest producers of LNG, it also would have some means such as the market available to sell its defense products. UAE is one such country. Another one is Qatar, which is actually buying defense products from multiple agencies and countries in the world. One of the major supplier is USA. So Germany, from that perspective, is looking for market. And third and last point is, Germany is also extending its outreach. It is to be seen from the perspective of its engagement with the global south. Recently, the Chancellor of Germany has paid a visit to Brazil, South Africa, India, planning to go to Saudi Arabia after the visit to Qatar. It has had a visit to China as well. What it means is there is a gradual shift of its orientation of the foreign relations towards the BRICS countries, because that is where the market lies, and it will be able to sell its products directly to these markets in times ahead.
Thank you so much, Sujaki Ji, for joining us here on NewsX World. We have some breaking news for you now. The World Economic Forum announced that it will conduct an independent review into its president and CEO, Borj Brender's interactions with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The review comes after disclosures revealed that Brend participated in 3 business dinners with Epstein, along with subsequent emails and SMS communications. The WEF stated that its governing board requested the Audit and Risk Committee to investigate the matter. The independent review is expected to clarify the extent of Brend's involvement with Epstein and ensure transparency within the organisation. US administration recently announced to streamline the civil service system in the country. According to reports, US President Donald Trump will be terminating around 50,000 federal employees. It is one of the biggest change in the US civil service rules and policies in a century. Under the proposed changes, federal agencies would decide job protections for their own employees who exploit legal norms and misuse funds instead of an independent office which used to deal with complaints earlier. This move gives President the authority to decide which government roles lose job protections, while reworking how long established safeguards protecting whistleblowers from retaliation are enforced. We are now being joined by Ross Feingold, a political analyst, joining us from Taiwan. Thank you so much for joining us here today on NewsX World. What are the potential implications of expanding presidential power to hire and fire large numbers of federal workers, especially in terms of how the civil service functions as a non-partisan body?
It won't be as nonpartisan as it was before, but that's assuming that the courts uphold the authority that President Trump is trying to give to the president. And it's very possible that the courts will uphold that, especially if this ultimately reaches the Supreme Court, where a conservative 6-3 majority is very inclined to vote with President Trump. So ultimately, and because this will go into litigation, if this is upheld, the end result will be that compared to past practice in the United States, the president will have a very broad authority to terminate the employment of federal workers.
And how might this shift in control of the federal workforce affect the delivery of essential public services and expertise within government agencies?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's probably too soon to tell. I mean, frankly, we simply don't know how President Trump or a future president, if they ultimately do have this power, how would they wield the power? I mean, they're not going to dismiss a mail clerk, for example. They're probably going to be more focused at senior levels, and even at senior levels, civil servants do have significant authority. They're not political appointees. They are civil servants who historically have been under the protection of some very stringent laws and regulations, which President Trump is trying to change. So the ultimate result here, if this is upheld by the Supreme Court, is that a lot of what the civil service does will be under the the more direct control of the White House. And that means it will inject an amount of partisanship into how federal services are delivered to the public. So whether the president is a Republican or it's a Democrat, it does mean at a more micro level that the delivery and the policies that control the delivery of federal services will be susceptible to the decisions and the partisan decisions of whoever is in the White House.
Thank you, Ross. Don't go too far, as we will be coming back to you very shortly. Flotilla activists say they are planning a second attempt to deliver humanitarian aid to Gaza after an earlier effort failed to reach the territory. The group says the mission is aimed at drawing attention to the humanitarian crisis in Gaza as conditions continue to deteriorate amid ongoing conflict. Activists claim that aid shipments includes essential supplies such as food and medicines for civilians. Israel has previously blocked similar attempts, citing security concerns, and has warned that unauthorized vessels will not be allowed to reach Gaza. The developments come as international pressure grows for greater humanitarian access, with the situation in Gaza remaining a focus of global concern. Meanwhile, some activists have reached. Let's listen in to what they had to say.
We come together in the global Sumud flotilla because of acknowledging that as a collective across the globe, we can isolate apartheid Israel, collapse it and bring it to its knees, just as we did to apartheid South Africa. We therefore want to take this opportunity, comrades and friends, to call on the entire global community. Registration is now open for Mission 2026.
With the announcement that we will sail with, this time, thousands of participants, including more than 1,000 doctors, nurses, health professionals, over 100 boats. And here we are inviting hereby participants from every nation, from every country. The departure will be at the initial historic departure from Barcelona, followed by Tunisia, Italy, and other Mediterranean ports. And we will sail this time at the date of March the 29th.
We are now being joined by Ross Feingold again. Thank you so much for joining us back here. Why are activists risking another trip to Gaza instead of using regular aid channels? And do you think what they are doing is putting pressure on governments to act?
I would call this the a triumph of hope over experience. Obviously, the Israeli Navy is going to stop them. They're not going to let them land in Gaza and deliver aid. So this is, unfortunately for the participants, it's a waste of time. It's performative politics. And the reality is the United States and its partner countries who have joined the Board of Peace, they are trying to resolve the humanitarian situation in Gaza. Is it where we would like it to be? No, of course not. But are they working on it? Yes. Are they forcing or pressuring the Israeli government to do more to deliver food and medical aid to civilians in Gaza? Yes, they are. The Trump administration and the Gulf countries, some of whom have a direct relationship with Israel, they are doing that. So this flotilla is a complete waste of time. It's just going to result in the same outcome as before, where the participants get detained, they get sent back home on a plane from Tel Aviv, or maybe they spend some time in an Israeli jail if they insist on doing so. To answer your question, is it going to change what other governments do? No. A number of governments have decided to participate in the Board of Peace. Even the ones that don't recognize the reality that they have to deal with the Board of Peace and the structures formed under that framework. And they're no government, European countries or elsewhere, they're not looking to work with a bunch of activists to deliver significant amounts of aid to the civilians in Gaza. So again, the whole thing, however well-intentioned it may be, it's completely misguided and a waste of time.
Thank you, Ross, for joining us here on NewsX World. It's a pleasure speaking with you. Nigerian President Bola Tinubu has deployed a military battalion to Kwara State Kaima district after a deadly assault left 170 people dead in Wuro village. The attack, which occurred on February the 3rd, is the deadliest in the region this year. Tinubu has condemned the attack and called it as cowardly and barbaric, and emphasised that the military deployment will ensure the safety of remote communities. According to reports, the assailants, thought to be jihadists, have been pressuring locals to reject the Nigerian state and embrace Sharia law. When the villagers refused, the attackers opened fire, killing many and destroying 38 homes. In a separate incident, gunmen in Katsina State have killed at least 21 people in an overnight raid. This renewed violence has sparked fears that jihadist factions could be advancing towards the Kainji forest region. Meanwhile, a villager has responded. Let's listen in to what the villager had to say.
The vehicle they burned down and the one they took away. So in Woro now, there's nobody in the community. Everybody is scared. Everybody have packed his family. They have left the community. It's only the security agent that they are just posted them just yesterday. It's too much. Because as yesterday, we buried about 75 corpses.
MP Jerome Gouge has become the first socialist to declare his candidacy for the 2027 French presidential election, announcing a run outside of a left-wing primary. While announcing his candidacy, Gouge said that there is space for a thunderous socialist voice. Gouge, a specialist in social affairs, particularly issues relating to the elderly, is a long-standing figure of the socialist left wing. He was among the rebel MPs who seriously complicated François Hollande's presidency. When asked about competition with centre-left MEP Raphael Glucksmann, Gouge pointed out that Glucksmann was not a socialist and had not yet announced his own candidacy. Let's in fact listen to what he had to say.
Parce que je pense que la voix de la gauche républicaine, universaliste, laïque, sociale, écologiste, européenne doit exister dans le débat public. C'est la seule qui peut rassembler la gauche, j'en suis convaincu, qui est très présente dans le débat public et puis surtout qui est de nature à être respectée par des électeurs qui ne viennent pas de cette famille dans l'hypothèse d'un deuxième tour. Parce qu'il faut tenir compte de la réalité de la vie politique française. Personne ne peut avoir raison tout seul. Donc il faut avoir ses convictions, mais celles qu'on va mettre au service de l'ensemble des Français. Et voilà, moi cette ligne, je la porte, elle m'habite depuis toujours.
That's all we have time for this hour. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.
In the midst of death, life persists. In the midst of untruth, truth persists.